the controversies, of Mahabharata. So till the last session, we have taken actually all the topics and all the questions which were there. We have already taken them all. So today we will be seeing the controversies regarding Lord Krishna. So our topic of discussion will be revolving around Krishna today, specifically what was his role, and responsibilities in whole of the Mahabharat war. And if you have any questions, you can post them. And at the end, if we get time, you can ask these questions directly to sir. So I'll just start with my first question. So starting from very basic, that is Krishna true, or does Krishna really exist? So there are many doubts regarding this. So uh, I mean, uh, how to come over these doubts?
Okay, so I would say like this: even if someone has doubts about Krishna's existence, okay, and refuses to accept him as a historical person, start hearing about the Mahabharata, start reading the Gita, see his contribution in terms of that entire literature, and you will definitely fall in love with him. So that's for sure. Okay, so even if, because he's like in the entire Mahabharata, and with the centerpiece of that being the Bhagavad Gita, his role, his position is certainly it's a very central figure that he takes, and nobody will be able to stop falling in love with that character. So I would say start with that. Okay, you fall in love with that character, and then when you understand the seriousness and the gravity of the scripture, then you would be able to appreciate this fact that such a scripture with so many grave thoughts and seriousness and purpose will not be based on mythology. So then you would come to the historical part. But my point here is, even if someone finds it difficult to accept it, he can still start falling in love with that character of Krishna. So just like, aren't there so many fictitious novels, right? Harry Potter and all that. People fall in
Yeah.
love with them, right? They don't even
Yes,
exist.
a lot.
There are now that movie RRR, if you know about it, right? So which is very famous. So it's a fictitious character. It never existed in British rule, anybody like that. But people fall in love with fictitious characters. So my point is, why don't you start falling in love with Krishna? Because it is so unavoidable that you would end up falling in love with him. Such a wonderful character. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And my second question is that after reading Gita, I also got to know that yes, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's the Lord. But I also felt many times while going through that book that Krishna seems to be having so much of ego that he's again and again telling, I am God, I am God. And on the contrary, he's teaching us to be humble. So when he's not following himself that humility principle, why he's preaching us to be humble?
Okay. Now, first of all, if you see, if Krishna, as far as the Mahabharata and the tradition goes, he lived for 125 years. Okay. And throughout his life, if you see, the fact that there are very, very few places he reveals or he talks about his divinity. See, this is one very interesting thing about avatar. When an avatar comes to the world, they don't keep saying that I am God, I am God. Actually, they don't do that. They act just like a common human being most of the time. Okay. Very rarely that divinity is exhibited by them, where it actually comes out that he is the supreme lord in that way. Same thing is true with Lord Rama also, since Ram Navami is coming up very soon, and also Krishna as well. Okay, so like in the Gita, even in the Gita, in so many places, Krishna, you will see he talks about God in the third person. so many places. He doesn't always hammer it that he is that. Of course, he talks about it in certain parts, but he also talks about God in a third person. Very often in the Bhagavad Gita, which happens to be a philosophical text. But otherwise, in the broad Mahabharata, he's playing a role just like an ordinary person. Like if you see, for example, how he's interacting during the peace message, when he goes as a peace messenger to the Kauravas, he behaves just like a normal peace messenger would, going and talking to everybody, trying to create some political alliances and so on. So this is also a very important part to understand. But because what happens, we just take those 2-3 places where the divinity has been shown by him or spoken by him too many times. So sometimes you may feel that he's always doing that, but actually that's not the fact. In the entire, so that is something very unique about Avatar. Their avatar is 99% human being only when he's in the earth. 1% of the time, they would exhibit some, magic or, or something that requires a divine power like that.
So when you were telling Lord is or Krishna is telling himself in a third person, what do you mean? Can you give some examples?
Yeah. For example, like in the 16th chapter, 18th chapter, if you see the 63rd verse, he says, surrender unto him. Him means the Lord, utterly, he says. Or if you see when he talks about Paramatma, in the 15th chapter, he talks about the roles of Paramatma, Smritir Jnanam Apohanam Cha and all that. So in many places when he talks about these, he talks about it as if it is, he talks about God itself in a third person. There are many places in Gita like that. It's not that always he says me. He does that, especially in the 12th chapter, in the 10th chapter, there are some places he does that, which are actually considered the confidential parts of Bhagavad Gita. But even in the Bhagavad Gita, he talks, and please remember, Bhagavad Gita is a private conversation between him and Arjuna. So right, that is recorded for our benefit, but as such, it's a private conversation between him and Arjuna. It was one-on-one teaching that was happening. Okay, but otherwise, if you consider the broad Mahabharata, he's behaving just like an ordinary person most of the time.
Okay. So, and this question which often comes up, that why Krishna married so many times. If we see Lord Ram, he is just marrying once, and if we see other avatars, so they are not doing such activities what Krishna is doing. So why does he do that?
Okay, actually, there's a very interesting thing about Krishna's marriages. If you see, in the Mahabharata and in Krishna Leela, each of Krishna's marriage happens because that particular woman wanted it. There is no marriage where Krishna goes to marry somebody. In fact, it is said in local folk tales that Krishna tells Balram after coming out from Mathura that I'm not going to marry only this life. Because in my last life as Rama, I married and so much problem was there. Right? One wife I had, she was kidnapped by that Ravan and so many things. So don't intend to get married itself in this life. So this was Krishna's original plan, it is said. But immediately what happens, Rukmani's letter had come to him saying that I want to get married to you. So please come and take me. I don't want to get married to Shishupal. If you see like this, all Krishna's marriages happen like this only, which is very indicative of his particular mentality again, where he's not behind he's not chasing any of them. Even the 16,100, it's a very wonderful story if you think about it. So there was this Narakasura who had kidnapped 16,100 princesses from various parts of India. Okay, he had abducted them and he had kept them under his custody. Okay. Then Krishna, of course, killed this particular person and liberated all these and freed these 16,100 girls who were abducted and kidnapped by this fellow. Now, these girls, what they tell Krishna, which is very interesting, they tell Krishna that, see, if you have now freed us from Narakasura, this is great, but we have nowhere to go now. Because our society and our parents are not going to accept us like this easily, which is which is very true even today also. If you think about it very carefully, if a girl has been kidnapped by some man and kept with him for 6 months, 1 year, or whatever period of time, many even so-called modern men would hesitate from marrying that girl. They will feel that pata nahi kya hua. Even if nothing must have happened, but still, if the boy comes to know that my would-be wife was kidnapped by some man, he would be very reluctant to marry her even today. What to speak of 5,000 years ago? So these girls basically they are telling Krishna that we have nowhere to go now. There is, and Krishna actually marries them just because of that. Okay, just in order to give them protection, in order to ensure that they have right. They also have a family and everything, which is a very normal desire of every woman to be married and to stay in a family like that. So if you see even that marriage of Krishna with that big number 16,100 that happens, it doesn't happen for him. It's not that he fell in love with so many girls and he just kept getting married. So this is very unique about Krishna. All his marriages were like that, if you think about it carefully. Okay, which is indicative of the psychology. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So it's true that death is an inevitable part of war, and tricks and schemes are often employed to win them. So Kauravas themselves broke quite a number of rules of fair play and on and off the battlefield. But the disturbing fact for me and many of our friends is that Krishna is that he also disguised them in the garb of morality. So as one dwells more and more into the story of Mahabharata and the text of Bhagavad Gita, one cannot help but wonder the true purport of Dharma as preached by Lord Krishna and opposed to what is practiced by him. So would you like to, sir, say anything about that? And I have few follow-up questions on that, giving some examples, but maybe on this if you can tell.
Okay. See, Krishna's strategy in the war is very clear. It is basically, I think we have discussed this once in our talks before about these three nitis. Okay. One niti is to do always the right thing, no matter what. One is to always do the crooked thing. And the third is to by and large do the right thing.
Shukra, Kanak, and Brahaspati.
Yeah. But if the opponent is extremely cunning, then you will have to also employ similar means. Otherwise, it's like, you say that I will always be righteous, but at the end of the day, you're dead. Okay. So that doesn't leave any good legacy. So this is the point. Okay. So let's take one story from Mahabharata on this. Let's take the example of the killing of Duryodhan. Okay. So let's discuss that.
Yeah,
here.
I was going to take that here.
Yeah. So first, let's look at that story briefly. So the story is that Duryodhan is the 18th day of the war, where everyone is dead, and among the Kauravas side, only Duryodhan is alive primarily, and among the Pandavas side, all 5 of them are there. Okay. So now again, what happens? Yudhishthir meets Duryodhan and says that, hey Duryodhan, you can choose any of us to fight with, and you can choose any weapon of your choice. And if you defeat any of us 5 with any weapon of your choice, then we will consider that you only won the war. When Krishna hears this, he says to Arjuna, what is this? It looks like you brothers are destined to always remain in the forest. Because how can Yudhishthir give such a commitment to Duryodhan? Can you imagine a commitment like this? Right? Because, hello, are you here, Visham? I think your picture has frozen. I'm not sure if you're still there or.
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. So maybe there is some issue at your end. Okay, so basically, so Krishna tells Yudhishthir, maybe these tells Arjuna that you Pandavas are, it looks like you people are destined to remain in the forest. Because how can you give such a commitment to Duryodhan? Because what if he chooses Nakul or Sahadev? In fact, other than Bhima, nobody can fight with Duryodhan in mace fighting. Okay. But fortunately, what happened is Duryodhan was quite egoistic. So he said that I will fight with Bhima only, and that also mace fighting. Okay. Then the mace fighting starts. Now, what happens is when the mace fighting starts, it becomes very clear that Duryodhana is gaining the upper hand. There were many reasons for it. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that, look, the way this battle is going on, it doesn't look to me that Bhima will come victorious. It looks more likely that Duryodhana will win. And there were many reasons for it. Bhima was certainly more stronger than Duryodhana. He had raw power. But Duryodhana was more skilled in mace fighting. So he was more skilled in the game. Besides that, in the past 14 years, 13 years, the Pandavas were in exile in the forest, and Bhima did not have much practice, but Duryodhana had a lot of practice, and he was obviously, practice makes a man perfect, as they say. So he was not only skillful, but he also had practice. And on top of that, Duryodhana had got that benediction from his mother Gandhari, right? So we know the story. One night before that particular war, what happens is Gandhari is asking Duryodhana to come naked, and she's ready to remove the cloth from her eyes and transform Duryodhana's body into literally like iron, steel-like body. But we know that Krishna tricks Duryodhana and ensures that he wears something at least on the lower part of his body. So that part doesn't become solidified. That part doesn't get the grace of Gandhari's vision, right? So, but the problem was mace fighting as a game. You had to only strike above the waist. You couldn't strike below the waist normally. So as the battle proceeded, Krishna tells Arjuna that indicate to Bhima to hit Duryodhana on the thigh. Okay. So first Arjuna says that I cannot say that because that is against the rule of mace fighting. Then Krishna says, okay, watch the fun. Then as the fight proceeds, again it becomes very clear that Duryodhana is gaining the upper hand. Now hitting Duryodhana on the thigh, it was not only strategic in order to just somehow kill him, but it also had a connection to Bhima's own vow that he had taken. So if you go back to the story of the gambling match where Draupadi was humiliated by the Kauravas, Duryodhana had he had opened his cloth and shown his thighs to Draupadi and said that come and sit here, because you are lost by your husband in the match. Now you belong to me, so you can sit on my thigh. And he exposed his thigh to her, which is extremely immoral and very cruel towards a woman to do something like this. At that time, Bhima had taken a vow that I will break your thigh. So now Krishna reminds Arjuna of that particular event, that Bhima had taken this vow to break his thigh, and which was correct as well in a way, because he had abused a woman. He had spoken like this to Draupadi, for which he deserved that kind of punishment, right? So then Arjun finally, he somehow shows Bhima, he slaps his thigh and indicates to Bhima that you need to hit him over here. And then Bhima immediately remembers his vow and he bangs Duryodhana on his thighs and fractures the thigh of Duryodhana, and thus Duryodhana falls dead. Thus he is killed. Now, as such, if you see in the story, you will see that Krishna is instigating Bhima to do this, which was actually against the game. But you have to see the big picture. The big picture is Krishna, first of all, recalls the humiliation that Duryodhana had done to Draupadi, for which he deserved that punishment, number one. And number two is, it is not just about a fair match over here. When you are dealing with an adharmic person like Duryodhana, it is important by all means to ensure that he is killed. You cannot say that let it be a fair match and whoever wins, let them take the crown. No, it's not like that. It very objectively also, if you look at the story of Mahabharata, it is very clear that Duryodhana had done so many things against the Pandavas for which he deserved punishment. And to let him go scot-free and not be punished at all, is actually violence to the society, as in that example will make people feel that no matter what you are, you can do anything you want and get away with it. So this is Krishna's entire thought process or mindset when he speaks like this and gets things like this done. Right. So externally, when you look at that story, you feel that he violated certain codes of war, which may be true, but you will have to look at the big picture. You will have to look at what all Duryodhan did to the Pandavas right from their childhood till even in the war killing of Abhimanyu. When you see all that, then you can understand that no, such people deserve such a death only, and there is nothing wrong in it, and we need not bring too much morality over here. Okay. So Rishabh, are you there?
Due to some network issue, Rishabh has disconnected. He will just join in few minutes.
Okay.
Till that time,
Yeah,
if you
so,
have got any questions from audience, we can take.
Yeah, okay. I'll take some questions from the audience if there is any. Anybody? Okay, there is one Chaitanya, I don't know who is he. He has sent me a private message on chat saying that I want to know more about Krishna killing Jarasandha. So let's look at that a little bit. So Chaitanya had asked this question. Now, if you see the killing of Jarasandha, okay, so this is also a very interesting story because now who is Jarasandha? So first of all, Jarasandha is the king of this place called as Magadha. Okay. And it was very clear, it is very clear in the story that this Jarasandha, he was always engaged in unnecessary atrocities. For example, Jarasandha had attacked Krishna and the Yadavas 17 times. And each time Krishna had done nothing against him, right? Of course, Jarasandha's son-in-law was Kamsa, who was killed by Krishna, and justifiably so, because Kamsa had imprisoned his parents and so on. But Jarasandha attacked Krishna 17 times. Krishna defeated his army but did not kill him. Then what happens in the story is that Jarasandha, what he does is, he imprisons hundreds of kings in India. See, please try to understand. Those days, Bharata was one kingdom culturally. Culturally, we were one country, but politically, there were many kings in India, correct? Politically, there were many small kingdoms all over India. So, and these kingdoms had their own kings, and that's how things would go. So, Jarasandha had kidnapped hundreds of kings, and he had decided to do their bali to Lord Shiva, which is not authorized by any scripture, but he had come up with his own concoction that I should kill all these kings as a sacrifice to Mahadev. Now the thing is, such people who are there, this is what is called as adharma. Adharma means doing things which are against the basic ethic of human life and existence. You cannot simply catch people like this who are doing their job well and just kill them for no reason. Okay. So such a person is essentially evil. He may be believing in God or he may not believe in God. That's not the point. If you see Jarasandha in the story of Mahabharata, he was very much believing, he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. So he was not an atheist. But the Mahabharata and our scriptures don't focus so much on killing atheists, but they focus on killing adharmic people. The adharmic person may be a theist. He may believe in XYZ God, but he does things in society which causes unlimited disturbance and violence. That is the point. Okay, and that is what you will see in the Mahabharata and our scriptures. Okay, you will see atheistic people, but you will also see many people who are devotee of some god, but they're engaging in acts of terrible destruction, which is called as adharma. And Jarasandha was like that. So now Krishna obviously wanted to ensure that he's killed because of what he was doing. So he takes with him, so he decides that if you take a big army, there will be a big fight and too many people will die because they didn't want to kill anybody else. It's just one man, they had a problem with Jarasandha. So that is why Krishna goes along with Bhima and Arjuna to Jarasandha dressed as Brahmins. And Krishna goes And he tells Jarasandha that we want charity. So he says, okay, ask whatever you want, I will give it to you. So then he says, we want yuddha, fight with you, one on one. So you have to choose one among the three of us and then fight. Jarasandha says that, well, you people look to me like Brahmanas externally, but I can see that you are actually Kshatriya. Who are you? So then Krishna says that I am Krishna, your old enemy. This is Bhima and this is Arjuna. He introduces both of them. And he says that choose one among us and fight. And Jarasandha chooses Bhima, because in some way he was his equal. And then there was this fight that lasts for almost 27 days. Now the thing is, Sandha means he was born by being joined. So there is a big story that how at birth he was born in two parts. And he was joined by this lady called as Jara. And hence his name became Jarasandha. So Krishna took a blade of grass and ripped it apart into two from the center, bifurcated it and indicated to Bhima that this is how you have to kill him. So that's what Bhima does, right? Because he was joined, there was a weakness in that area. In that joining, there is always a weakness. So then he ripped him apart. And now the interesting thing is when Jarasandha is dead, now please understand that Yudhishthir and the Pandavas don't become the king of Magadha. That does not happen. Rather, what they do is, Jarasandha's son Sahadev, he was a decent guy. So they make him only the next king. It is not that Yudhishthir is ruling by remote control. Okay, so this is not like the British imperialism, where Britain, they went to all these places and they were only ruling over those places. But this was never like that. So this is also an important thing that you see in the Mahabharata. Even for some reason, if a king died, then the local person from that area only would become the king. Okay. Okay, Rishabh, yeah, I think we
Am I audible?
some time. Yeah, you are audible. So we basically discussed two things. One is we discussed the death of Duryodhan, and also someone asked, Chaitanya asked about Jarasandha's death. So that's what I spoke. Rishabh, I think you're not, I can only see you. Your face is again frozen. I think you have an internet connectivity issue. Okay, I'll take another question I'm having meanwhile. I'm audible, right? Can somebody just confirm that? I don't know who has a problem.
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm audible. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I have a question from someone called as Sumit, which I'll just take here. So Sumit has written to me, I have one doubt. None of the Pandavas' children are really Pandu's children, as he cannot have sex and is cursed. So technically speaking, the Pandavas are not really Pandavas, are they? Very interesting question. So if you go back to the story is that Pandu had killed a particular sage.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Who is that now?
Am I audible?
Is that Rishabh or is it somebody else? I don't know. You are audible, but
Yes,
we can't see
Rishabh.
you. Or yeah. Okay, I just continue with that. So with Pandu, what happens basically is that he ends up killing a sage who is having union with his wife, and they both are in the form of a deer at that time. So this is very common. Now, just try to understand this. Some of these sages who would live in the forest, they did not have any house or a bedroom. So whenever they wanted to unite with their wife, they would employ their yogic shakti of transformation, where they would take the form of some other species, and then you can unite very easily, right? Because other species can unite in public, there is no problem. As human beings, you cannot. You need a privacy. So this sage was uniting with his wife, but both were in the form of a deer, and Pandu happened to shoot him at that particular time. Now the thing is, there is a rule in hunting. So first of all, now this hunting itself is a contentious issue. Somebody may say, why did these people hunt? Two reasons. One is there are rules for hunting. So one rule is that they could hunt only those species whose population would increase too much. Okay. Typically, or they could hunt animals who were causing a risk to humans, closer to human territory. So hunting did have a reason, which is very fair actually. Like for example, they say even today that if the number of deer increases too much, that has to be balanced by the tigers and other things. If it increases too much, then the forest will be destroyed. So some amount of hunting was necessary to keep an ecological balance. One thing. Second thing is hunting was also done for the Kshatriyas to experiment their strength, because they needed to face situations where they have to shoot at an adversary, and they needed a live practice. So hunting provided that. So these two things were the reasons to hunt. But there were rules. Like you could never hunt any creature which was engaged in an act of sex, because at that particular condition, to kill an animal when he or she is engaged in that act of union with in that particular situation, that is considered adharma. That's considered a big sin. Now, for some reason, Pandu did that mistake. Okay, he killed that deer when it was engaged in the act of union with its meat. So then he gets the curse that if you do the same, you will die. So for that reason, Pandu couldn't have union with his wife. So that is the time Kunti says that she has this blessing of invoking any devata, and that devata would immediately give a child. Now, please try to understand. Now, these devatas who would come, it is not that they would have sex with her literally, physically. No, that was not how it was done. Okay. So the devatas had a different way of impregnating a child. They do not have to touch also the lady. So that is how it is, right? So what they do basically, Pandu and Kunti, they both do tapasya for 1 year for each of this child. They meditate on the kind of child that we need. This is technically called in Sanskrit as Garbhadan Sanskar. That means before you have a child, you meditate on what kind of qualities you want in your child. You have the kind of Atma in your body. Nowadays, but it's an amazing science, and even up till a couple of most people practice Garbha. You have to, then only you get a child in your family who is, he or she has certain qualities which you're really looking for. And so this, the Kunti and Pandu, for 1 year they would do tapasya. Not that Kunti would just call one devata and get a child. No. They would think, okay, we need a child who is Dharmaraj. We need a child who is very strong, like Vayu. So we need a child who's famous like Indra. So then they meditate on the quality, and then they invoke that devata, and the devata blesses the lady with the child. Okay, so biologically one may say that these children were not born of the semen of Pandu, etc. But that's not the point here. Okay, so that is only one thing. The point is that these characteristics which were there in the Pandavas, that was because of the tapasya of Pandu. You have to read the Mahabharata to see that. He, along with his wife, does that tapasya for one year, meditating specifically on what type of child they want. And then they get it. Okay, so that is why, so that is why these children were considered like that. Yeah, as Pandavas. So because it's not just about the biological, the semen, and that particular thing.
Sorry, I had bad internet today. So another question which I had, that what was Krishna's role in the Mahabharata? Like when he was going to make the peace, was he really sincere that time?
Okay, now this is a very interesting question, because this question is raised by many people. Even Gandhari raises this question to Krishna. At the end of the war, when all the Kauravas are dead, Gandhari is asking Krishna, hey Krishna, if you wanted, you could have certainly stopped the war. Okay, so basically she wanted to say that just because you did not, so she puts the whole blame on Krishna only, that it is only because of you that this war happened and all these people died. So many times people feel this. that God could have done whatever he wanted. Yes, it is correct. He can do what he wants. But at the same time, we need to understand that he gives free will to everybody. See, this free will, it's an amazing thing if you think about it. Without free will, man becomes a machine. What is the difference between you, me, and this laptop? This laptop has no free will. It doesn't decide when it should be on, when it should be off. Correct? I decide when my laptop will be on and when will it be off. Anything that is non-sentient, not conscious about itself, what we say as Atma, not existing in it, that means there is no soul in it. Such matter basically has no free will. But human being always has a free will. And when Krishna comes to this world, he respects the free will. Okay. So that is why you see that before the war, Krishna does his role as a messenger. He tries for peace, but he doesn't force the peace on them. Because if he wouldn't do that, then he's not giving only free will, right? I mean, somebody will say that Krishna could have done something and just ensured that they listen. No, it's not like that. What he will do is just like what human beings do. Try for peace. Okay. So that's what he does. He sincerely tries for peace. In fact, after the peace talks are done, when he comes back to the Pandavas, Krishna tells the Yudhishthir, I tried all four things. Sama, Dama, Beda, Danda. Sama I tried by peacefully telling that please give the kingdom back to Pandavas. Sama means by peaceful method. Second is Dharma, by showing some money. I told the Kauravas that you can give only 5 villages to the Pandavas. Rest, entire kingdom you can keep with yourself. Only 5 villages for the Pandavas. That is Dharma. Because in that you are enticing the opponent by saying that you can have maximum property, maximum kingdom with yourself. Third, he says is, I tried Veda also. Veda means dissension, to cause some divisive. That means to break the opposite party. Like Krishna goes to Karna and tells him that actually you're the son of of Kunti only. Don't fight for Duryodhana, come on the Pandava side. Okay, so in this way, Krishna says, I tried Sama, I tried Dharma, I tried Veda. Nothing worked. Now only Danda will work. Okay, and this is very interesting if you think about it. So because that's how life is, right? You have to try Sama, Dharma, Veda, and if nothing works, only then Danda will have to be employed. Directly you don't employ Danda, and that's what Krishna does. So indeed he was very sincere in the peace. But if the opposite party is determined not to have peace, Krishna is not going to force that situation. Because as I said, that can never happen. Right? When you're dealing with human beings, you need to give them that space. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes. I'm not sure, was the question taken up? I mean, did you answer that? That why did he instigate Bhima to hit below the waist?
Yeah, I spoke in detail. We spoke that in detail.
Okay, fine. And then we can also see that many people feel that Krishna enticed Arjuna to fight the war, although he was hesitant and almost said that, no, I don't want to fight the war now. So why did Krishna force to have, I mean, why did he force Arjuna? Although he was not willing to do it.
Yeah. Good question. So actually this would bring us to our next theme also on Bhagavad Gita, I think, about which we can talk next time in more detail. But today we'll focus on the first part of what you're asking. In fact, many people have this question. This question has been asked repeatedly by many people, because Arjuna in the war, in the beginning of when the battle was about to begin, when he sees his relatives on both sides, Arjuna feels that I don't want to fight. And many people feel it is such a nice step not to fight. Many people look at those who are so-called idealistic thought, who have that thought, who think that non-violence is the best option always. They feel that it is so nice that Arjuna himself, right? It is so nice that Arjuna himself wanted to be non-violent. Then why is Krishna instigating him to fight? Okay, so for this, one needs to understand this whole principle of Dharma. See, the principle of Dharma basically is that 2-3 things. One is that everyone has to stick to his duty in the world, even if there is some difficulty in it. Okay, so Arjuna is a Kshatriya. So as a Kshatriya by nature, he has to rule a kingdom. Okay, he is from a kingly background. Now, who is stopping him from ruling? Duryodhana is stopping him from ruling. Arjuna Swadharma, his own nature as a Kshatriya is to rule, but Duryodhana is not allowing him to function like that. This is considered adharma. So basically the whole, please try to see the underlying point. Each of us in this world, we have some unique contribution that we can do in this world based on our individual potential, which is called Swadharma. And nobody in the world has a right to stop us from growing towards it. If anybody says, suppose if somebody wants to contribute in some way, to stop that person, especially when that person is talented and has that nature to do work like that, to stop him is considered violence. Okay, so Krishna's perspective, which is the bigger perspective here, is that there is violence on the Pandavas by not allowing them to function the way they need to function in the world. And to tolerate that is also violence. To not do anything against it is wrong. Okay, and Krishna can never stand with adharma. So that is the first thing why Krishna wants the Pandavas to fight, because it is their swadharma to do so. First thing. Second thing is that these people, Duryodhana and company, have done so many acts of adharma throughout their life, and they cannot go scot-free. That doesn't leave a good legacy in the world, where somebody does all mischief and then they just escape scot-free without any punishment. They need a particular punishment. Danda is needed for such people. So both these reasons are very important, mind you. The Pandavas have every right to use their potential in the world, and the Kauravas, because of their misdeeds, need to be punished. And both these things can happen only if the war is there and Arjuna fights. And if Arjuna is going to simply run away like this from the battlefield, talking about non-violence and all that, that is not going to help in any way. So this is the broad reason why Krishna doesn't permit Arjuna to simply run away from the battlefield like that. As in, again, Krishna doesn't force him to fight. Krishna only talks the philosophy. Okay, but Krishna makes Arjuna understand what is what. And Arjuna himself comes to this conclusion that yes, this is the best thing I must do. See, there also there is no force, because Krishna is not a god who forces anything on anybody. Even on his devotee Arjuna, there is no force. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells him that if you want, you fight. If you don't want, let's go back or whatever. But since you asked me what is my opinion, I have told you that. It's like that.
Yeah. I had a follow-up question on that. Maybe I leave that. So my next question, in continuation of this question, is that as you had previously 2-3 times mentioned that why war was necessary. So actually there is a very thin line here, that when we can forgive someone and when that danda is to be given. So how do we draw that line?
Yeah, very good question. Very good question. We should forgive someone honestly when it is a personal matter. But when a larger society is involved, and if you can handle it, like I will tell you one simple thing. Do you know that among all the countries in the world, India is the country today which has the largest number of court cases among siblings? Do you know that? Siblings means brother, sister. Over what? Over property of their parents. People fight for 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees also. And of course, suppose, right? India is the only country which has the maximum civil suits, and that also all among brothers and sisters. There can't be forgive. Suppose, let us say your brother or sister wants 50,000 rupees more of your father's property. अरे छोड़ दो ना यार, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, तुम्हारा भाई बहन ही है ना. So there you can employ this forgiveness weapon. But here, this is so first of all, see, you have to also look at the scale. Okay, here Duryodhan had not tried to cheat Pandavas of some petty thing. If you see what all they had done, each act needed a death sentence. Okay, poisoning the food, setting fire to their house, cheating them in the gambling match, disrobing their wife, molesting her. I mean, each of these things needed a death sentence. And what if somebody does all of them? And moreover, here an entire country is involved. It's not just a personal thing. So please try to understand. Let's not reduce the conflict of the Pandavas and Kauravas to their family fight. It's not just a family thing. It is about establishing dharma, because these people are kings. So as kings, what they do or what they don't do has an impact on their entire kingdom, which is much more than any personal thing. So it's not just, two individuals having a problem. It is about the legacy. The whole world is looking. Everybody in India, Bharat is looking at their king being insulted like this by their cousin, and if no action happens, what is the lesson that is going to everybody? Okay. So we cannot even compare. So I would say that forgiveness is okay when it comes to personal things. But when the kingdom is at stake, when there is a larger impact in society, there is no question only of all this forgiving and all. And personal means especially in your siblings and all, like I said, simple small property issues we people keep fighting. And many of these property issues are so silly if you read about it. There are brothers and sisters who will not allow the other person to sell also. I mean, for very silly reasons, they don't allow. And it keeps going on in court for 20, 30 years. They all are dead and gone. That property, generations, that property simply remains. This is how Indians are fighting over property. But when it comes to philosophy, they all say Gandhi's philosophy, non-violence, forgiveness. So there you cannot bring. When a terrorist attacks India, you cannot forgive him. You cannot forgive Ajmal Kasab because he attacked our country. It was not an individual thing. There you cannot forgive. Prithviraj Chauhan shouldn't have forgiven Muhammad Ghori. Okay. So these are points where you cannot forgive. So you need to understand where forgiveness can be applied.
Yeah. So I have three quick questions. Two are interrelated. That why it's very evident to see that why Krishna gives problems to his devotees only, and it seems sometimes that he helps non-devotees. So how to look at this?
Oh yeah, see, this is something. It's like in a way, at least with the Pandavas, we can certainly say that he put them in very difficult conditions. Sometimes it is said that it is just like gold. If you put it in fire, then it shines even more. If you know the property of gold, gold is such that in fire it shines more. So great people, they are great devotees of God. When they are in troublesome situations, the way they act in that, the way they respond in that, their character shines forth even much more than before. So this is one reason why it is said that the Pandavas are put into various troublesome situations, which is to show the character of a person. Like you see character, right? Character comes out in tough times. Otherwise, anybody can be a nice person. Okay, so this is why Krishna does that. But ultimately, you need to remember Satyameva Jayate. Satyameva Jayate means Dharma wins at the end of the day. So this is a very important lesson. Yeah. You are not audible at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I was muted. So my next question is that it's seen that in so many pastimes, Krishna, he like in I'd say one example of Gajendra Moksha, when he was attacked, the elephant was attacked, and also in the pastime which comes of Jai Vijay. So he comes so quickly to help his devotees, but why didn't he come quickly to help Draupadi?
Okay, good. So first of all, he does come to help Draupadi in the form of the sari. It's not that he doesn't do anything at all. Certainly he does that. But again, the thing is, see, just as Krishna wanted the dharma of the Pandavas, the greatness of the Pandavas shown, he also wanted to ensure that the adharma of the Kauravas is also shown properly to the world. That means how evil people can be. You need to see that, right? So before punishing somebody, you need to show their full evil possibility. Correct? So if somebody is acting evil, they are allowed to, the characters in the Mahabharata are also such that these evil characters, their evilness is shown in full color. Okay, which has to be done, because if it's not done, if every time they start doing something evil and Krishna immediately stops it, their nature to do evil is there anyway. And how long Krishna will keep stopping like that? Okay, so Krishna allows them to function. Okay, you want to do all your evil things, perverted things, do what you want. Ultimately, he protects his devotees. So Draupadi is protected, not that she isn't. But then these people, everybody is punished, because now it is very clear who they are. See, without that gambling match, we wouldn't have understood how evil and perverted Karna was. Karna basically calls Draupadi a prostitute. She says that you can, you can just choose any of us. And he speaks very disgracefully, he speaks to her. So you understand all these evil characters only in that particular scene in the Mahabharata.
It's interesting. Okay, my last question is that throughout the discussion, we got to know that Krishna is a supreme Lord. So why does he die by the arrow?
Yeah, okay. See, now the thing is, when Krishna comes as an avatara to this world, he also needs to exit. Okay, see, the Lord comes also, now he doesn't come magically, right? He comes through a husband and wife only, like Vasudeva Devaki, he comes through them. Similarly, he exits also in a normal way only. It's not that he will just suddenly vanish like that, right? So in fact, the Mahabharata says that there was a body of Krishna that was lying down, which was cremated by his grandson Vajranav. Okay, because the way he exits is also just like a human. See, because that's what avatara means. Avatara means the Lord takes the form of a human and behaves like a human 99% of the time. So his birth and death are also like that. Of course, there is some divinity involved everywhere because he's the Lord, but still. Okay, so now why he departs with that arrow, there is that whole story, right? Like one of his sons or grandsons, they insult the sages by taking an iron ball, putting it, they make a man, Samba, who's son of Krishna, dressed like a woman, and put the iron ball inside the cloth and show it to some sages and ask, ladka hoga ya ladki hoga inko. It's just to mock them. And the sages understand, they say that it will produce something that will destroy your entire dynasty. Okay, so the words of the sages also have to become true. So Krishna accepts it because he's part of that dynasty. He accepts it on himself as well. Hence, an arrow made from one of those components falls in the hand of a hunter who mistakes Krishna's feet to be a deer, and he shoots. And interestingly, shoots on Krishna's feet. If you carefully see, nobody will shoot an arrow at your feet and you die because of that. Even today, somebody shoots a bullet also on your feet, nothing will happen to you. Okay, but so you understand that this is just a pastime. Okay, so that Jara is shooting at Krishna's feet, not on Krishna's chest, on feet. Then that arrow falls at his feet, but still he passes away as a result of that, which basically means he's accepting that so-called quote-unquote death on him, in the material sense. Just as he's born, he leaves the world. So the beauty is he is behaving like a human. He's respecting the sages and so on. So that's what. So let's come to the beginning of where we started. Whether or no you believe in Krishna, if you study Krishna's character, it is impossible that you will not be mesmerized by that character. It is impossible that you will not fall in love with that character. During the Mahabharata, B.R. Chopra's Mahabharata, when this was telecast in Mumbai, this had come in the news. There was a Muslim man in Baikula who was seeing the Mahabharata, and he actually got a heart attack when he saw Draupadi's pain, and he died as a result of it. Okay, so the point is, these characters are like that. You have to fall in love with Krishna. You have to fall in love with Arjuna. You have to fall in love with Draupadi. Okay, I'm sure that Muslim man would have never heard about all this before. Maybe he never believed in these people. But these characters are so lovable that you will fall in love with them. And once you fall in love with them, once your heart starts melting towards them, then this question will become a very, irrelevant question. Yeah, very insignificant. Then you will understand the purpose of life, the purpose of our existence, and then you understand the position of Krishna. Okay, like that. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah. I also remember that when Yeah, just 1 minute. I was telling that I also remember that when Krishna comes and Draupadi asks him that why did you come late? So he gives a very human reason that I was so much far away and it took time for me to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So thank you so much, sir. I will just take 2-3 more minutes for summarizing what you just told me. If you want, you can just leave. So, sir, sir started with saying that when we start reading about Krishna, we asked him that is Krishna real or is he fake? So, if we read about Krishna and his pastimes, we'll fall in love with him. And when we continue reading, we will know that how beautiful he was as a person. And there are so many people like Harry Potter and so many other things, characters, fictitious character who people get fall in love with. So when we continue reading about Lord and his pastimes, we will surely uh, like to read more and fall in love with him. So then we asked about that was Krishna egoistic when he was telling again and again that no, I am Lord. So since I told that very few times Lord shows that he's his superiority, and the divinity is exhibited by him, and he is telling God from a third person point of view in Gita, but he behaves like a very normal person in this world. That answer told that is the meaning of avatar. He avatar means he's 99% behaving in a humanly way, and very few times he will tell about that about his own reality. And also, sir mentioned that Bhagavad Gita, why it's told more in Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is a very private conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And then we took the point of Krishna getting married to so many people. So so as sir told that Krishna told to Balram that I don't want to marry, and he actually didn't want to marry, nor that he was chasing anyone. So sir mentioned that there was one demon whose name was Narakasura, and he captured 16,108 women from different parts of India, and they were abducted by him. And just to give, and he freed them. Krishna freed them by killing Narakasura. But all the women said that where will we take protection now? There is no place. And then Krishna says, okay, I'll accept you all. So in this way, he got married to so many people. And then we saw that sir mentioned about the three nitis, the Shukra Niti, Kanaka Niti, and the Brahaspati Niti, which we had seen in the previous session also. And then when question came about Kunti, so it was not that Kunti was just calling the devatas and one by one they were coming and impregnating. So when the demigods devatas were coming, so they didn't even touch the body of Kunti. So there were different ways in which you can impregnate a woman. And sir told that the qualities of the child, you can get them. So there is a process which is called as Garbhadan Sanskar, in which a child is invoked in the family by meditating specifically on the qualities you want in the child. And then we asked about, was Krishna really sincere at the time when he went as a peace messenger? So sir told yes, although Gandhari blamed Krishna, but yes, he was very sincere. And sir gave two reasons. One was that is that Krishna has given us free will. Like this laptop cannot decide the things which have soul. They can only decide. And if he says that, oh, let everyone have peace, so this is again forcing peace on everyone. And Krishna also tells to Yudhishthira that how he tried all the different methods: Sama, that's peace; Dama, that's money; Ved, decisiveness; and Danda, that was the final thing, that war was there. And then we asked about that Arjuna was hesitant; he didn't want to fight. Then why did Krishna push him? So sir told that it looks very nice to be non-violent, and but everyone has his duty in this world to do. And Krishna, by nature, by nature was a Kshatriya, and he had to king, and Duryodhana was stopping him from ruling. That is called adharma, and uh, it's our duty to give our contribution to this world, and that is called as swadharma, and that is what Arjuna was doing. And if somebody is stopping you, then the answer is danda. And on this we had asked that what's that thin line when we forgive someone or we give a danda to someone. So sir told that when something is on a very personal level, then it can be forgiven, but when it is comes on a very large level, or when dharma is to be established, then danda becomes necessary. And then I asked that why there are so many problems to his Krishna gave to his devotees only. So sir told that when the gold is put in fire, it shines more. Similarly, the character of a person comes out more. And Krishna wants to show that character to this world, that what is the character of my devotees, and even in those difficult times, how do they behave? And it is for us to learn how we should behave in difficult situations. And then we asked the question of Draupadi. So sir beautifully told that two things a Lord wanted to show from that pastime. That was, one was the dharma of Pandavas was shown, and also the adharma of Kauravas was shown, because this was very important to understand who is on the side of dharma and adharma in the Kurukshetra war. And then last question we asked about the death of Krishna, and Krishna told that, so told that Krishna was just because he came as an avatar, so he just behaves very normally. As he came, as he took birth, he also had to leave his body in that way. So with this, I just stop here. Thank you so much for your patient hearing, and I also would like to thank Sir for giving out his valuable time. So we had thought initially of 4 sessions, but last session we will be taking one last session and a concluding session. Next week it will be informed to you on the controversies of Mahabharata. So thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you all in the next session as well. But if you have any questions, especially on Bhagavad Gita, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box, or the forms will be given out to you. So thank you so much.